Alright, DR-Z stator repair. I repaired or replaced my stator, and now the bike doesn't run correctly, so we're going to do it again. And yeah, first thing you want to do, get the seat off, get the cover over the airbox off, and lean the bike over. This way you can take the stator cover off, and all the oil will drain or will sit in the other side of the bike, so you really won't lose any oil at all doing this, which is pretty cool. Tools you'll need: you have a Phillips head screwdriver for these, and then almost all the bolts are either 8 or 10 millimeters, so that's pretty much all you need. I went ahead and removed, there's a little guard down here that sits in these two holes that will allow us to actually pull the cover off because it overlaps. And then you can either take the shifter off, or as long as it's not in first gear, when you go to slide the cover off, you just push it down, you just hold it down in the down position while you slide the stator cover off, and yeah, that'll work. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we can go ahead and get started. Easiest to start, or you have to start with this cover over the idler gears. Just to, you can replace these screws with regular bolts if you'd like to, but how little you do this and the fact that they really aren't designed to be super tight, Phillips head screw works just fine as long as you got the right size screwdriver. And then I just like to lay out a paper towel on the ground down there where I place the bolts. These 3 screws are all the exact same length, so there's no, it doesn't really matter where you put them. You just gotta remember where and not lose them. But when we get to the actual stator cover, that becomes more important, because the actual stator cover is got different lengths in it. So we need a little screwdriver to pry. This guy will work. I used this one last time. There's an O-ring in here. You don't need to replace the O-ring, but it does make it real difficult to remove. Let's do this carefully. Try not to screw this up more than it already is. There it goes. So that's normal. Pop a washer out there. You also got a little piece in here you want to make sure you don't lose. That's not the cleanest, which isn't great, but whatever. And these gears you can just go ahead and pull out. So in here, we're looking for, since we got to pull it anyways, we're just going to inspect it and make sure there's no sign, any like gouging or something that would indicate a serious issue. Looks good to me. One thing I see is almost looks like there's a little bit of metal flake in there, which is not good, but oh well. Alright, once we get that removed, there's a little washer in there that is magnetized and will stick to it, but I like to pull it off just so I don't lose it. And see, there's 2, they're the same. They go on either end of this idler gear assembly, which you can also disassemble if you want to. I'm not going to, just because I don't have a need to, but if you do disassemble it, just remember how it was disassembled so you can put it back together correctly. And then now we get into the 8 bolts that actually hold the stator cover in. The reason why we have to take off the idler gears is the first one is in there. I like to pull that one off first because it'll let a little bit of the oil drain from there and you spill a little bit less. I'm lazy, so I'm going to use an electric ratchet. Just important when you go to reassemble everything, don't over torque these. The spec is only about 7 foot-pounds. Alright, once you have all 8 bolts removed, I like to lay mine down starting at the one that's at the 12 o'clock position and then just going around clockwise, because these are different lengths. Your top center, your one within the, that's kind of underneath this idler gear, and then the one down here are all slightly longer, so you don't want to screw that up. Like I said, you have to hold this shift lever down, and then this is magnetized on here, so it's kind of a pain, but it will just slide off. And you just want to be careful because there are wires, as this is where the stator is actually installed. You don't want to tear those wires. I'm pulling this out. There's a good little bit of slack, but still. Shimmy this off. And I didn't like sit for as long as I probably should have. This is a bit of oil, but that's all right. See, really, it's not too bad. Might get a few drips. There's a gasket in here. Want to be careful to not lose that, as well as two of the bolts have little shims in them. Doesn't really matter which side they stay in. I like to put them in the engine side because then they're with the gasket, but really up to you. However you want to do it. The one I can put back, the other one's stuck there anyways. And now, notice this wire is pinned underneath the transmission. Those are already fraying, so that's not good. We're going to go ahead and remove this oil. That's a bit of a, this little bolt to free this, because that's a bit of a mess. It's probably an 8mm as well. Yep. I need to pull it out all the way, just enough to free that. Now, we can inspect the condition of this stator, see if this is what's causing my issue or whether I screwed something else up. So you got 3 bolts holding the actual stator in, 1 bolt or 2 bolts that hold in the side, and then one that's just holding a little bracket that keeps the wires out of the way. I'm worried that this is where my issue is coming from, because if you notice this piece, when this sits in here like this to make the seal, oops, kind of missed, that wire is sticking out quite a ways, and I'm worried that it might be contacting this. Let me think about how this sits. The way this sits, like this wire is, I think it's dangerously close to this gear. So you really want to make sure it's not touching it, but I don't see any signs of it touching, so. All right, once you have your stator cover off, you will see that's what it looks like inside. We're going to go ahead and remove all of these bolts. I don't even know what size they are. I think it's a 6mm Allen key. Oh no, it's a 4. But I'm going to pull those off, and you want to make sure you Loctite them when you put them back on. Now go on super tight, just snug. Alright, once you've pulled the old one out, you have to pull the wiring out from back here. There's a couple little reusable zip ties you can pull out, and then this right here, the yellow plugs will unplug and get replaced, and then along with right under the seat, there's another plug. But when you go ahead, and if you look at the new one, you'll see how long the wires are, and it gives you a good idea where to find them. Every bike's probably wired a little different from being repaired and stuff, but that's how mine was done. I'm going to go ahead and start reassembling this. This stator is still loose in here. A little trick I heard was to go ahead and install this rubber sort of, I don't even know if you would call it a grommet, but rubber piece. And then once it's in the right spot, you can go ahead and install it to, you might be thinking, oh shit. Alright, so went ahead and inspected the old, or the mostly new stator. If it was the old stator, you could inspect it and look for whether it was plastic broken or whatever. And then went ahead and reinstalled the little holder for the wiring and the grommet first, to help get that down out of the way. So otherwise, there's, depending on what model stator you buy, there can be a little bit of excess wiring that could get hung up if it's bowed out. So instead you pin the wiring down underneath everything, then you know you won't have any issues and it won't be sticking it up into this stuff over here. Then you want to go ahead and reinstall. I don't know what the torque spec is, just nice and tight, although should be noted that I am using blue Loctite on this because we do want it to maybe come apart one day, but I have heard from people who've done this job on this bike or similar bikes that you can, if you don't Loctite these, they can come loose, and then you've got a bolt floating around on the outside of your clutch pack or in your crankcase, both of which are very bad and will end your day. So I had Loctite them. This is inside the crank, so, or inside the engine, so being a little bit judicious with the Loctite so that we don't cause issues further down the road. And you can see I'm really not using much, just enough, and then make it nice and tight. Verify everything else is tight. Very nice. And last guy, nice and tight, not going anywhere. Now we can go ahead and reinstall this. This one's a little bit easier because this rubber piece has been installed before, so it's already a little bit crushed down. If this is brand new, it will be rather difficult and just constantly pop out on you. The best way I found to do it was to kind of hold it, flip it, and put it in with the gasket already on this side. I know this gasket's good because I just pulled it off, but you want to go ahead and inspect, make sure it's not torn anywhere, and then we'll go ahead and reinstall it. One last thing before we install this, I noted when I took this apart that it had already begun to fray a little bit here because there are two braided wires that rub between this little piece of metal and the edge of this cover over the front sprocket, if you have the same one I do. So I just go ahead and e-tape it a little bit just to protect it, because we wouldn't want those to fray right after we replaced them. Now we can go ahead and reinstall this. So this is pushed in. Big thing to line up are this hole and this hole with our two little circle, and then I just shift up one and then go ahead and shift down, just get that out of the way while we reinstall this. So I'll slide in here, and you shouldn't really have to force it, it'll go together. There's one way it goes together correctly, so if it's not fitting, you got it wrong, there it goes. Really doesn't take much pressure. Now we can go ahead and reinstall all the bolts.